All right, we're about to jump into the work of a poet who is famously, some might even say notoriously, difficult, J.H. Prynne. He's often called unreadable, but here's the thing. He's also one of the most influential poets out there. So what's the deal? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain, look at the method behind the madness, and see why grappling with his poetry is actually an incredibly rewarding experience.
So let's just start with this question right off the bat, because it really gets to the core of everything Prynne does. What if the whole point of a poem wasn't about finding a neat little message you can tweet about later? What if the real value, the real meaning is found in the process of struggling with the words themselves? Just keep that idea in your back pocket as we go through this.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to ask, who is this guy? Then we'll dive into how he uses his poetry as a sharp tool for social critique. After that, we'll see how he puts language itself under a microscope. We'll then look at how his work is a direct response to our chaotic modern world. And we'll wrap it all up by tackling that big question: why should we bother reading poetry that's so tough? Right, first things first. Who is J.H. Prynne? For well over half a century, he's been this towering and honestly pretty mysterious figure in the world of British poetry. Okay, so he was born back in 1936, and he really came onto the scene in the 1960s as a major player in what was called the British Poetry Revival, which was basically a movement of poets trying to shake things up and break all the old rules. And his style, it's known for being incredibly dense, just jam-packed with heavy philosophical and political ideas. You see, Prynne doesn't just write poems within the existing rules. He's actively trying to redraw the map of what poetry can even do. Now, let's get into his actual work, and this is where it gets really interesting. When you hear avant-garde poet, your mind probably doesn't jump to, domestic life. But one of his most famous early collections is called Kitchen Poems, and he uses these totally mundane, everyday settings to say some incredibly powerful things about society. And this is his genius right here. He takes these two worlds that we think of as totally separate, the personal, domestic sphere on one side and the huge, abstract world of political economy on the other, and he smashes them together. He shows how things like capitalism and labor aren't just out there ideas, they're woven into the very fabric of our homes, our relationships, our daily lives. It's a really sharp critique, hidden in the most unexpected place.
And the thing about Prynne is he never, ever stood still. I mean, look at this. This is just a 5-year window. He goes from these sprawling experimental poems in the Whitestones to this really harsh, dense, almost metallic language in brass. And then he pivots again to this incredibly raw physical exploration of pain in wound response. He was always changing, always adopting his style to fit his subject. So, all that constant change wasn't just for kicks. It led him to this really crucial point in his career where the poetry stopped being just about things and started being about language itself. He wasn't just using words anymore. He was taking them apart, piece by piece, to see how they build and break our reality.
This description of his collection Brass is just perfect. The language is meant to feel hard, metallic, and resistant. It's not supposed to be pretty or flow smoothly. It's designed to give you the same feeling of alienation you get from the industrial world he's critiquing. You're meant to feel that friction as you read.
So how does he do that? How does he create that feeling of resistance? Well, one of his key tools is what's called fragmented syntax. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. He breaks sentences. He shatters the grammar. And by doing that, he forces you, the reader, out of your comfort zone. You can't just passively absorb the poem. You have to actively get in there and piece it together. Just like we have to piece together meaning in our own fractured modern world.
And this is so important to understand. If you're reading a Prynne poem and you feel confused or lost, you're not doing it wrong. That's part of the design. The difficulty is the point. He wants you to search, to make your own connections, to become a partner in the act of creating meaning. So once he develops this incredibly potent and challenging style, what does he do with it? He points it like a laser beam at some of the biggest, thorniest issues of our time: technology, global crises, and all the systems of control that shape our lives. I mean, just look at how relevant his work has stayed. In the 70s, he's writing about technology. In the 80s, it's control and oppression. Fast forward to 2010, and he's tackling the global financial crash. More recently, ecological disaster. He has always used his difficult art to confront the most difficult truths of our times. Let's just take Subsongs as a perfect example. It comes out right after the 2008 financial meltdown, and it's this scathing takedown of the moral emptiness of modern capitalism. And he uses that dense, fragmented style for a reason, because the system he's describing is itself impossibly dense, fragmented, and morally bankrupt. The form is a perfect mirror of the subject. It's absolutely brilliant. Which brings us, finally, to the million-dollar question. After all that, why should any of us put in the hard work to read a poet who is so deliberately difficult? What's the real payoff here? I think this quote really just says it all. The value is the challenge. Reading Prynne is like taking your brain to the gym. It forces you to get your hands dirty, to engage with the actual nuts and bolts of language, and see how form and meaning are totally intertwined. It makes you realize why some of the most important ideas just can't be boiled down to a simple soundbite.
So maybe we just need to change our goal when we approach a poem like this. The point isn't to solve it like a puzzle and then say, aha, I got it. The point is to have an experience, to feel on a really deep level how language isn't just a tool we use, but a system that actively builds our reality and sometimes constrains it too.
And so I want to leave you with this one last thought. We live in an age that demands everything be quick, easy, and simple. But Prynne's entire body of work stands up and asks a really powerful question in response to that. What if the most complex, the most urgent, the most truly important ideas simply can't be said as simply?